A change of tone in the Western media over the Ukrainian crisis as some news outlets begin to shift their view on what's really happening in the embattled East.
My logo and I have got nothing to do with this terrorist group.
A British Muslim snooker player facing a barrage of social media criticism for wearing a badge bearing the name ISIS, even though it was only the name of his sponsor. Women activists in Jerusalem fighting against discrimination. They're going to court to fight against modesty signs, demanding they follow dress codes in the city's ultra-orthodoks neighborhoods. The world's top headlines live from Moscow. This is RT International. Thanks for joining us today. Life is, starting to slowly return to normal for many people in embattled eastern Ukraine. With the truce now largely holding for over a week, shelling has stopped. And despite towns and cities now laying in ruin, people are beginning to feel safe enough to leave their bomb shelters, basements and venture outside. RT's Murat Gazdiev remains in the region.
Humanitarian aid sent by the Russian Federation, sent by the Red Cross, is reaching the city. Hundreds are queuing in the city square for food, for clothes, for medicine. So positive development there. The city is beginning to recover. As for the rest of the front, it's much quieter. There are, of course, ceasefire violations, but the Minsk agreements are taking hold. We've had a prisoner exchange, we've had heavy weapons, artillery, multiple rocket launcher systems being pulled back away from the front line. So certainly positive developments, though it's worth saying that the passions certainly remain high. In Kharkiv, in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv, during a march by several hundred people commemorating the one-year anniversary of the Maidan revolution, a bomb went off. It's being described as an act of terror. 2 people died, a number were wounded. There are suspects in custody, but it just goes to show you that the ceasefire may be holding, but the passions remain extremely high.
For almost a year, much of the Western media was accused of not providing both sides of what exactly has been happening in East Ukraine. Many news outlets, very content to just describe the region as a rebel-controlled area where people were terrorized by so-called separatists. However, recently there has been a bit of a new narrative taking hold, as Daniel Hawkins has been finding out.
And that so often feels like a state more than a ragtag insurgency.
More media outlets are coming out with reports that only a year ago would perhaps have raised significant eyebrows, acknowledging the transformation taking root on the ground in eastern Ukraine. Echoing the CNN report, BuzzFeed also says the Donetsk region is, quote, functioning like a state. The Financial Times, too, published an article that admits people living in eastern Ukraine want their own government instead of the one that has been bombing them for months. It also says, I quote, Kiev bombings have turned people in East Ukraine against the central authorities. Well, those were the newspapers, and here are some TV news clips which echo a similar line.
Alexei is clear it's all the fault of Ukraine's president, Petro Poroshenko.
We're hungry. We have no bread, nothing. This is what President Poroshenko has done to us.
Well, this has paved the way for an apparent shift from the black and white picture which we have been seeing so far.
Blame, hatred and charred remains everywhere. But to Ukraine's bright hopes of modern prosperity, the gate is closed.
Certainly is a country that seems disillusioned by the pace of reforms, by the economic situation, but also, of course, by the situation in the east of the country.
I think this is a catastrophic misreading of Putin's intentions. It's very important to look at what Russia is doing, whether it's action or reaction. And to me, an awful lot of what Russia's been doing is reaction.
So it seems there's a growing realization that there are more shades to the Ukrainian story.
Well, for more on the events that pushed Ukraine right to the very edge, just head over to RT.com, our special coverage there for the Maidan revolution. For now on the programme, a Muslim snooker player in the UK unleashing a wave of criticism after wearing a badge saying ISIS during a tournament. Let's show you Rory McLeod during the Welsh Open. You can see here on the left side of his jacket the word ISIS, of course a name now synonymous with that of violent jihadists. Well, ultimately, the logo sparked an immediate response from users taking to the social media to unleash their versions of condemnation. Let's show you some of them here on the programme. You can see, for example, as we bring up the graphics for you, some of them are asking, is this guy for real? And there were plenty more to match this, like another tweet asking whether McLeod had perhaps lost his mind. This wasn't a controversial political statement, though, but merely the name of the player's sponsor. Still, some users urged him to be more careful in his choice of sponsors, and we had a chance to speak to Rory to get his reaction.
My logo and I have got nothing to do with this terrorist group. There's over 270 companies with the same logo, ISIS. There's 270 companies that have got nothing to do with this terrorist group in the Middle East. People have got to get away from this stereotype, you know, condemning people before they actually know the facts. Definitely, yes, I will continue to wear it because my logo, my sponsor is free from the terrorist group. And me as a Muslim, I'm free from the terrorist group as well. I mean, I've been wearing it for nearly 14 years now.
And the name taken by the Islamist group has already proven a challenge for multiple brands like that magazine, which has the same name. A chocolate producer was also forced to rethink its branding policy. Of course, that was called ISIS. A real estate company facing exactly the same issues with their choice of title. Finally, last year, media in the UK demanding to know whether a dog from a TV programme, that of Downton Abbey, had fallen victim to the militants. That was also called, as you guessed it, ISIS. Now, it's not just the name of a jihadist group that can get you into trouble, for example. To Austria now, where 4 men were arrested after Arabic writing and Arabic flags were spotted in their home. There was no connection to extremism, but the chairman of the Austrian Muslim Initiative, he says the Islamic community is surrounded by suspicion.
This is one very clear example. It wasn't an Islamistic messages. Those people were not somehow a potential Islamistic terrorist. And this makes us concerned that the public, the media, are looking somehow with a double standard concerning terrorism when the message is dealing with Muslims in Europe. This is the problem. This pressure of justification is really one of the reasons of extremism and radicalization. People and also Muslims in Austria should have their identification not just as a foreigner or a guest, but as a part, an essential part of this beautiful country and this society.
And the spread of Islamic State and why Western foreign policy might well be to blame. That's up for discussion in today's edition of Crosstalk. You can catch it throughout the day here on RT International.
The idea that Saudi Arabia is somehow going to be involved in some kind of problem solving in the region when it is one of the central reasons why those problems exist is utterly ludicrous. And so I think that oftentimes conversations about U.S. foreign policy are really dancing around the main point, and that is that the U.S. wants to spread this chaos for the purposes of managing it.
What profits does the U.S. have going around creating chaos around the world? That only comes back to bite the U.S. in the end. And you know, I think the U.S. would much prefer to be out of the Middle East. I was against the invasion of Iraq in the first place. We got dragged into by a previous administration into a series of kind of battles that I think more moderate, more reasonable administration might have avoided in the first place.
No revealing clothes and no rite of passage. These are the kinds of orders addressed to women in Jerusalem's ultra-orthodoks neighborhoods. So 4 female activists have had enough. They decided to go to court to force a change. The story now with RT's Paula Slayer.
This is an area where I fear to go. We found that if we stand on that sidewalk by that synagogue for more than 2 or 3 minutes, we'll get, 50 kids running out, spitting and screaming and throwing stones at us. Someone's teaching them that this is the right way to treat women.
Nilly Phillip has a lot to show us, but she's afraid to leave her car. So she's driving us around the city where she lives.
This is a synagogue. These signs tell women to refrain from passing on the sidewalk.
And a few meters on,
right behind us, right there, is a large sign, threatening, offensive sign, that tells me exactly what I need to wear. That I need to come in with a long sleeved shirt, a long skirt, that I'm not allowed to wear slacks, that I can't wear anything fitted or revealing. And in this area, I and other women have been attacked.
It got so bad that Nilly went to court. And in a groundbreaking case, the judge ordered the city's municipality to take down the signs. It was a win on paper, but on the streets, the signs stay. Israel's secular law means very little for the country's ultra-orthodox community.
That's the kind of tactics they use. They use violence, threat, they use lawlessness, they use force, they have no respect for the law.
But it's not just about where women can walk and what they can wear. Israel's ultra-Orthodox minority has a pull far greater than its numbers. It dictates to the country's Jewish community who can marry and where women can pray. Here, in the heart of the old city of Jerusalem, men and women are forced to pray on different sides of the Western Wall. Anat Hoffman is a provocative and controversial figure in ultra-Orthodox circles. She campaigns for equal praying rights for women.
I think that the great ultra-Orthodox empire in Israel is cracking, and it's cracking because the young women and older women in the Orthodox world are asking themselves the quintessential revolutionary question: why not?
Many say change is inevitable and is already on the horizon. Paula Sleer, RT, Jerusalem.
Israel's dual Jewish and democratic character has been latched onto by the Prime Minister. Following a trip to Paris, Benjamin Netanyahu said that he represented not only Israel, but the entire Jewish people. Political scientist Norman Finkelstein told RT's Going Underground program remarks like those are completely unacceptable.
Here is a state that calls itself the state of the Jewish people. And you have a head of state who happens to be a maniac, and he goes around saying, I represent all of world Jewry. He said, when I'm going to Paris, he said, I'm representing all world Jewry. When I'm going to the Congress to speak about the so-called threat from Iran, I'm representing all of world Jewry. So then you're going to fault people for taking him at his word? He's saying, when I say we should attack Iran, I'm representing all of world Jewry. When I say we should attack Iraq, I'm representing all of world Jewry. When I say we should attack Lebanon again, when I say we should attack Hamas again, or Gaza again, I'm representing all of world Jewry. So you have a maniac who claims to represent all of world Jewry, and then people take him at his word and think, okay, if he represents all of world Jewry, then Jews are a problem. That's the logical conclusion. So if there's anyone who's causing the problem, it's the state of Israel and its head of state who keep claiming that their murderous actions are in the name of world Jews.
So the Austrian government is introducing a new initiative to control the influx of immigrants from Kosovo. We'll have a very close look at the plans in just a moment.
I'm a fighter. I can take a punch. I live. I learn something every day. I strike when I need to strike. I prepare. I've earned everything I have. If I fall, I get back up. I won't be underestimated. I'm Aaron Aid, and I put the boom into boom bust.
It's getting cold out there. Brr.
Cold War, Cold War, Cold War.
New ice age in relations with the West.
We will have a relationship.
The question is, what kind of relationship?
Maybe the kind of relationship where Russia is the threat and NATO is the peacemaker.
Russia's provocations, Russia's aggression.
Bloody Russians, they keep moving their country closer to our bases.
There you go, totally clear why Russia would be blamed.
It's now 1:15 here in the Russian capital. Thanks for joining us for the program. The Austrian government has issued an appeal in a Kosovo newspaper discouraging immigrants looking to cross the border for a better life. The article says, quote, smugglers are lying. There will be no asylum in Austria for economic reasons. Now, there are also warnings that illegal newcomers could be fined upwards of €7,500. Germany and Austria are the main destinations for thousands of Kosovar legal and illegal immigrants who have been fleeing en masse. So Berlin and Vienna are trying to limit the influx, bringing in forced deportations and a strengthening of the border controls. For Kosovo's population, though, of just over 1.5 million, the number fleeing is really significant. They're driven by unemployment levels of nearly 50%. This year, there was a drastic upsurge, with the number of asylum applications to Germany doubling. And Kosovo's foreign minister blamed rumors that Germany was about to loosen its asylum policy. However, political analyst Alexander Pavic thinks the problem is that Europe has been supporting independence there and was ultimately, though, unsustainable from the very beginning.
Austria is afraid of people who have become absolutely desperate. People who, since their so-called independence was declared in 2008, have lost all hope. This is just a continuation of the real Western hypocrisy over Kosovo. They encouraged independence of a territory which absolutely cannot sustain itself. They encouraged a civil war within a country. They did all that. They gave those people false hopes, and now they're turning them back.
In brief, to some other global headlines, a girl believed to be no older than 7 killed herself and at least 5 others in a suicide bombing in northeastern Nigeria. Reports say many more have been injured. The young bomber detonated explosives strapped to her chest at a checkpoint outside a market in the town of Potoskum. At this point, no group has claimed responsibility, though. There are indications it might have been terror group Boko Haram. They have done this kind of work in the past. It's day 2 now for a rescue operation in Bangladesh, where a ferry carrying up to 150 people capsized after it was hit by a cargo vessel. Currently, it's believed at least 70 passengers died. Those figures, though, likely to rise because it's very unclear how many people are still missing. In the meantime, the captain and the crew of the cargo vessel, they've been arrested. A Greek Super League football match between Panathinaikos and Olympiakos turned violent in Athens as fans clashed pre-game. It all started when one team's supporters threw flares at the other president as he walked onto the field. Fans from both sides then stormed the pitch, injuring a policeman. This match, though, is commonly known as the Derby of Eternal Enemies. No surprise, it's got a long history of violence. Activists in the UK are saying the nation's police force just isn't ethnically diverse enough. They say a lack of officers from minority groups actually leads to mistrust among the public. RT's Anastasia Churkina takes a closer look.
The debate around the representation of black officers in the UK police force is far from over.
It's a reality that the police service is institutionally racist. Promotion, retention, discipline are all disproportionately applied or disapplied to black and ethnic minority crews.
The British capital is home to hundreds of ethnicities and languages. 40% of Londoners and rising are from an ethnic minority, but are represented by only 11% of the 32,000 Met police officers. Nationally, it's just 5%. Critics say this comes nowhere near fair representation. Serving police officer and spokesperson for the Met Black Police Association, Janet Hill, says community confidence, trust, as well as equal opportunity for officers are for now only a dream.
The challenge has been quite great, identifying, that we are talented and that I'm able to, deliver at the levels that the organisation wants, because I don't fit the norm of, the white middle-aged male, and that is the issue.
Janet says not only does institutional racism apply to being hired, but also when it comes to moving up the career ladder.
The majority of black, Asian minority staff are on the bottom runs of the organisation, so they're all at the constable rank. And then as you go up, we become fewer and fewer, because, no matter what aspirations you have, unless the process is right and fair, then you're not going to make it.
And while some senior officers have voiced concerns over the racial disproportion, others are said to fear that prioritizing filling in race gaps could lead to disaster.
There are great dangers in trying to force the issue. You know, like anything that involves any form of kind of a racial integration, you have to give it time and you have to go with it. And if you try to force things along, it will go very, very wrong.
Race relations activist and politician Lee Jasper disagrees.
As a former policing director of London, I can tell you that there has been unconscious bias in the selection of police officers, and therefore you do need a sort of affirmative action, positive discrimination approach in order to get the numbers up. That doesn't mean a lessening in quality at all.
Meanwhile, analysts say that to become representative of the population in the next decade, 1 in 4 recruits need to come from a minority group. But with fewer than that currently being taken on, fair representation looks like being even further away. Anastasia Churkina, RT, London.
On our website for you this hour, Indonesians finding a creative way to rally against Tony Abbott. The entire country has been collecting silver coins for the Australian Prime Minister. To understand why they're doing this, it's right now at rt.com. Also, the story that the UK becomes the first country to allow babies to be born using DNA samples from 3 parents. The decision sparking criticism among various European politicians. We'll find out why on our website.
Right from the scene. First-rate news and eye-gripping pictures. On our reporters' Twitter and Instagram. To be in the know, follow us online.
It's RT International. Revealing state secrets has been turned into Oscar success. A documentary about Edward Snowden has taken a statuette at the annual American Film Awards ceremony. Citizen 4 has already tasted success at a number of film festivals in recent months. Director Laura Poitras revealed she had to film her documentary under intense secrecy due to the sensitive nature of the footage and the legal status, of course, of the whistleblower. Other winners at the Hollywood ceremony, including Julianne Moore right there in the center for her role in Still Alice. Eddie Redmayne took the Best Actor prize for his role in The Theory of Everything. And then Birdman, starring, there he is, Michael Keaton, from the director Alejandro Iñárritu. That was named Best Film. A special documentary coming up next here on the network. Last summer, the MH17 Malaysia passenger plane crash that came down. Everyone said Russian rebels shot it down with a Buk missile. Then why are Dutch investigators and Malaysian investigators ignoring all the bullet holes? The story is next.